I love that speech. Whether or not having guns is good or bad, we need them just because we're American, because that's what we do. Believe it or not, Americans also care about, saving people from being shot in the face, or protecting people from having their brains blown out, or decreasing violence, and all those good sorts of things. Those are all American values too, and those are all things an American would like to protect. So let's look at these arguments about rights, right? So he says it's a universal fundamental right, and the United States protects universal fundamental rights. Therefore, the United States must protect it. Well, if it's a universal fundamental right, why doesn't he want to legalize guns in all countries? If it's a universal important right, then shouldn't we legalize it everywhere? But moreover, he's happy to severely regulate this universal fundamental right. If it's a universal fundamental right that it's American to put any kind of restrictions on, then why does he want to keep the status quo regulations? Why doesn't he want to get rid of all of the background checks and all those sorts of things? That case just seems contradictory, and I know that Taco made it because he loves these arguments of well, that's what the United States do. We have to do it forever. Now, let's talk about this right to defense that they brought up. So, it might be important that you have the right to defend yourself. Well, let's think about the trade-off. Your right to defend yourself is some criminal's right to buy a gun. That criminal's right to buy a gun takes away the right of someone who either isn't carrying a gun at the time or doesn't want to have a gun because they worry that their children might find it and use it, or who just feels uncomfortable around guns. It takes away that person's right not to be violently mugged. It takes away that person's right not to have a common thug with a gun do violence upon them. And the beauty of our case is it makes it much, much harder for these common thugs to get guns. When there are fewer guns, a very small number of guns, guns become very expensive. It's hard for a common thug to buy one or even find one. But moreover, and therefore it becomes much less necessary for you to even have that gun to defend yourself in the first place. That right to self-defense becomes a less serious, necessary right. It becomes a less imminent right because there is fewer violence in that society after taking this proposal. And then they said, well, the government can't protect some people in rural areas. We're happy to increase police service to those areas, but more importantly, a big reason why the police doesn't go into certain areas in America is because those areas are too dangerous. The police will refuse to do walking patrols of areas because there are so many guns that they're afraid that they're going to be shot and killed. And not just guns of criminals, but guns of just average people who, if they get stopped by a cop, might have an emotional reaction and try to kill that cop. So a fundamental reason why the police don't go into certain areas in America is because there are so many guns in those areas in the hands of all different kinds of people. And so when we limit the number of guns, that actually increases the capability of the police to police these areas and to make sure that those areas are safe and to be on the ground and be there to protect innocent people. Now, I'll take a POI if you want to give one, or I'm going to go on. I'll go on. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is two things. I'm going to talk to you about, one more argument about the right to self-defense. Actually, you buy the gun thinking you're only going to defend yourself. And you have that gun thinking, well, I'm just going to use this to defend myself. There's some other guy who did the same thing. I'm just going to use this gun to defend myself. You get into an argument at a bar. Normally, you settle that argument with fistfights. But you get emotional, and you're drunk, and you can't control your anger, and suddenly you pull out that gun, and he pulls out that gun. And even though both of you bought that gun, only intending to use it for self-defense, in that context, it can become the spark to violence. And guess what? Somebody's dead. So we need to weigh up this right to self-defense against all the other possible victims and possible rights that I've given you. Now I'm going to talk to you about two things. I'm going to talk to you about fear, and I'm going to talk to you about the police, and how this is beneficial on both of those things. Because what we say, the reason why so many people in America want to have guns is because there's a cycle of fear. They think that everyone else has a gun, well therefore I need to have one too. But what we say is that we can make this situation gradually over time more like Japan. Like in Japan, you guys know there could be some people out there with guns. Like it's a possibility. But you don't actually think any given person probably has a gun. This is different in America. In America, even a law-abiding citizen, I look at him, and if I'm in Texas, I think, that guy could have a gun. Now I'm afraid, because I'm living in a world where all these people have the capability to instantaneously kill me. When I'm living in that kind of world, I want to have a gun too, right? And this is the cycle that creates one where everybody needs to have a gun, which can become the key to violence, the spark to violence, and that leads to more deaths on the ground. And as I said before, it's a very American value to prevent innocent people from dying. Happy to protect that point. But yes, please.
Under your model, all day if you are living alone, in zone have to like live in massive fear because they can easily be attacked, right? They are easy target.
Okay, so on their side of the house, the harm now that they have is there's some old people in some rural areas that could be afraid. Our harm is that everyone lives in constant fear of being shot all the time. You can weigh them up, and also we can do some things to protect the old people, and we're happy to do that on our side of the house. We're going to, hopefully the police will have a lot of free time after this because they won't have to be solving so many gun crimes. So maybe we can use some of those police resources to protect the elderly. But another huge problem in America is a problem with the police. The police are also afraid. The police are in danger. The police in America can be shot at any time. When they bust into a drug house, that house might be just full of guns. When they bust into a normal house, that house might be full of guns. When they pull someone's car over for a speeding violation, that car might be full of guns. And even if it's a law-abiding citizen. And people get angry when they interact with the police. People get emotional when they interact with the police. So the police in America are scared all of the time. They're always in fear of their own life. What this leads to is two problems. One, the police in America get killed a lot more than the police in other countries. In our side of the house, we think that's really bad. We think that the police, the people who support our laws, need to be protected. But moreover, when the police are afraid, they make bad decisions. The reason why there's a lot of police shootings in the United States of America is that the police are afraid of themselves being shot. They think that anyone could have a gun, so they're that much quicker to pull out their gun and shoot. And what we think is that this is another mechanism through which we get needless casualties in the United States of America. We think creating a society where everyone feels safe also creates a society where the police feel safe. And we think that creates that kind of society is one where we don't get the kind of needless shootings and needless police brutality that we've been seeing lately in America because of how scared the police are, because they know that at any time they could be a target, and that not just hardcore criminals, but even someone that they just arrested for a common offense could be carrying a gun and could react violently to them. So what have we shown you? We've shown you that it's a right because it's America argument just is contradictory, it doesn't make sense. We've given you all these arguments of how it reduces violence, leads to less death, less needless fatalities, and finally how it creates a safer society that isn't one based on fear, but is one based on mutual trust. For all those reasons, we're very, very proud to propose. Thank you.